This presentation will discuss academic essay structure, the basic structure for college essays. Academic essays are structured like sandwiches. The substance is in the middle, that is the body of the essay, but that body is sandwiched between an introduction and a conclusion. Let's discuss that in a little more detail. So those are the three main parts: an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. Now, the introduction introduces the topic and leads into the thesis sentence. The thesis sentence is the main point of the overall essay. It's the main claim of the essay. Each body paragraph expresses and develops one distinct supporting point for the thesis. So each body paragraph expresses and develops its own distinct point, but each of those points supports the thesis sentence. The conclusion paragraph wraps up the essay and reinforces its main point. Let's discuss the introductory paragraph. The introduction starts with a relevant hook to get your reader's attention. You might want to start with a question that will get your readers to think, a startling statement, or just something that will get your reader engaged in your essay. Then you narrow it into the topic of your paper. And if your paper plans on discussing readings or analyzing readings, then you would want to indicate that in the middle of your introduction. And finally, the introduction gets to the point, so to speak. It gets to the thesis of your essay, which is the overall point of your essay. It narrows into that. Oftentimes, people have a difficult time writing papers because they actually get stuck on the introduction. They sit down to a blank page and they want to start writing their introduction, and they kind of get stuck because they're not sure how to begin. I advise you that you write your introduction possibly after you've already written your body paragraphs. If you have a tentative thesis and you are drafting your body paragraphs, that's good enough to get going with your paper. Then once you understand or know what your essay is going to say, it's much easier after that to write your introductory paragraph. Let's look at an example of an introductory paragraph. Press pause and read this paragraph. I want to point out that this paragraph has a hook, and in this case, the student has used some kind of surprising figures to hook readers into making them interested in this essay, and then some general comments about the topic. And in this case, the student is using a type of introduction called an anecdote, where the student gives a brief story that highlights the point. And in this case, the student has created a character named Mark, and some of the concerns that he has are the same concerns that many college graduates have, or same situation that many college graduates face, and that will be discussed in the paper. So that can be considered general comments about the topic. And it narrows into the thesis sentence, which is the main point of the essay. I just want to say a word about the thesis. Later on, I've given you some more information on one of the assignment sheets to link to that gives you more information about the thesis. But usually the thesis sentence is one sentence, and it's a statement. It's not a question. Remember, the thesis is expressing a claim. It's not asking a question. It identifies not only the topic of the paper, but the points you want to make about that topic. And I like the thesis sentence to be at the end of your introductory paragraph. Let's discuss body paragraphs. Each body paragraph expresses and develops one distinct point, but it's a point that supports the thesis sentence. Let's look at a sample body paragraph. I have included the thesis sentence from the previous introductory paragraph I showed you, just to remind you. So press pause and read the thesis and the body paragraph. As you can see from the body paragraph, it starts with a sentence that directly supports the thesis sentence. So the thesis is that that it might be wiser to consider alternatives to college, and the topic sentence of this body paragraph is presenting a reason to support that thesis, and that is the bleak employment outlook for recent college graduates. So you always want to make sure that your topic sentence, the first sentence or two of your body paragraph, directly supports the thesis sentence of your essay. Then the details within that paragraph should support that paragraph's topic sentence. And in this case, it does. The student has included some research to support her point about the bleak employment outlook. And finally, a concluding sentence should reinforce the paragraph's overall point. The concluding sentence is sort of like another version of the topic sentence, but at the end of the paragraph. Finally, let's discuss the conclusion paragraph. The conclusion wraps up the essay, reinforcing its main idea and leaving readers with a final, relevant thought about your topic. Along with the introduction, the conclusion is sort of frames your essay. Let's look at an example of a conclusion on this next slide. You may remember the introduction to this sample essay I've been showing you throughout the presentation. In that introduction, the student used an anecdote of a college graduate named Mark. Well, in this conclusion, the student brings the essay full circle, framing the essay by bringing up that same anecdote. Press pause and read this conclusion. Do you see how the student brings up Mark again and then uses that to move into some general comments that reinforce the thesis of the essay? So that's a nice way of just bringing your essay full circle and leaving your reader something to ponder. Finally, avoid starting your conclusion with "in conclusion" or "in summary" or any version of that phrase. Those phrases suffer the stigma of being overused in unsophisticated writing, such as high school papers. So when you use them in your papers, it makes your writing seem less sophisticated than perhaps it is. You also want to avoid adding any new points to your conclusion. Remember, the purpose of the conclusion is merely to reinforce the point of your paper, not add new points. And finally, you don't want to merely copy and paste your thesis and topic sentence and make that your conclusion. That gives readers the idea that you're sort of a lazy writer. You want to reinforce your supporting points without repeating them exactly.